Okay, we're going to continue discussing movement and how it works in nations at war. And in this section, we're going to go over transportation units. Now, what I mean by that are things like armored infantry that have a half-track to transport armored truck, something like that, or an anti-tank gun that's going to be towed by a vehicle, or even things like motorcycles. I've got some examples set up here to show you, and these are the same counter. I just have both sides set so you can see what each side of the counter is going to look like. These top two here, these are the unloaded sides of the counters, and the bottom two are the loaded sides of the counters. You can see some of them do have combat stats on both sides, while things like this anti-tank gun does not. It can only attack when it's actually unloaded and set up for combat. So what that gives units like these the ability to do is to load or unload into their different forms. And you're going to have to take and pay 3 movement points to take and do that. So let's say our Pioneer infantry here wanted to take and load, they could take and flip the count over to this side, which would be the half-track side, and they would pay 3 movement points to take and do so. Same thing for this AT gun. If it wanted to load back behind the truck, it would pay 3 movement points to take and do so, at which point it could take and move again. When loading or unloading, when paying those 3 movement points, the cost comes from the side that you are flipping to, not from. So if you are in the truck and you switch over to the infantry, you're going to pay from this infantry side, which they only have 3 movement points, so they would have none left. But if they're on their infantry side, loading into the truck to take and move on, you subtract 3 from the movement point of 5 that half track has, and that would leave 2 remaining to be spent on that impulse. When we look at things like the AT gun obviously can't move, so when you unload to that side, there's obviously not going to be any movement points left. The truck itself would have 1 left to spend. You also have to pay attention to things like disruption, because a unit can unload when it is disrupted, but it cannot load when it's disrupted. There are also a few other special units, things like the motorcycle that I have set over here. They're going to have a special loading or unloading if they have that asterisk right next to their movement factor. That's going to indicate that they have an easier time loading or unloading, and they only have to pay 1 movement point for that action. So when looking at this motorcycle, they would only pay 1 movement point when unloading down to their infantry side, and they would have the remaining points left to spend, which we can see for this infantry counter, they have 3 movement points, so they would still have 2 movement points left to spend if they so wished. The asterisk is not on this side though, so they do not get that bonus when mounting back into the motorcycles themselves.